What was the decision to go with the 3D style, which looks amazing, by the way,
Yeah.
but what made you gravitate towards that?
I think, again, it was just taking it to the next level and doing something different that has never been done before with the Turtles. And so, you know, I know in the movies they went, there's a CG movie, but for a TV series, this was the first time for this. And also, we wanted to play around with the mediums a little bit. So, you know, that's why we have that incorporation of the 2D and the anime, you know, the comic book vibe that you saw in the video downstairs. So, yeah.
I think it's a, you know, I'm not a salesman for Nickelodeon, but I think it's a trademark, is that all the stuff you do is very inventive and creative, and it's always, you know, cutting edge. And I think that's what I thought when I first saw it, and you guys decided you're going to do it in full CG. I thought it was, you know, a huge undertaking, and, you know, what you pulled off was tremendous.
Yeah.
It's really fantastic.
I mean, any CG show is a huge undertaking, and you're always severely limited by the capabilities that you can do, because everything's, you know, a process. You have to build. It's not like 2D. You can just, you know, draw and you know, off you go, you know, and you have to build everything, and then you got to rig it, and then you got to, you know, do the wrappings, and it's all this crazy stuff, and it takes time and money. And so something like the Turtles with their skin tones, you know, and the texture, and then the shells and the texture was just a monster, you know, to sort of take on this project. And after a while, sometimes we were just going, oh my God, why are we doing this? You know, but it really worked out well. So, and then to have the other kind of mediums thrown in there, like I was saying, it just makes a really great visual package. And I think it's going to be something that we're going to put out there that nobody else has right now for a TV animated series.
Definitely.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the obvious question, what is it about the Turtles that's made them endure so long? I mean, I grew up loving them. I think my kids are going to grow up loving them. What is it about these guys?
You know, what I think is interesting, it is a question that we've asked ourselves a number of times, because when we started the first Turtle comic, we wrote exactly the kind of characters we wanted to read and told the kind of story that we wanted to tell. And we were very lucky that it resonated, I think, with a lot of like-minded fanboys, I guess, because I still, I mean, with my kids, I still go to the comic store every Wednesday, New Comic Day, so I'm still a big fanboy. But I think it's, when it comes down to the characters themselves, it's, you know, for mutants, they're misfits, they're a bit outcasts, different, and I think most kids growing up feel the same way, so they can kind of relate to them as like everybody feels a little bit of an outcast. And with the individual personalities, they can sort of relate to, as I always ask people at a signing and those kinds of things, like, who's your favorite turtle? And it's like, so I think that tells a lot about a person. Well, I like Donatello for this reason and Michelangelo for that reason. So I think it's the natural family aspect, the being outcast, the ability to stand up and be that hero that we all like to be, you know, when the chips are down and you're backed against a wall, you want to do the right thing and save the day. And I think just telling good stories, I mean, trying to tell good stories, the stories that, you know, we want to read. And I think that's what you guys embrace so well. And that's, you know, you look at somebody like Ciro and yourself, Ciro especially, what a huge fanboy.
Yeah,
huge Turtle fan, and he really, you know, wanted it to go back to the...
Ciro Nieli is one of our co-EPs on the series. So it's funny you talk about that with the characters, because I always say I'm Mikey, and I'm always like, am I sticking my foot in my mouth by basically calling myself a jackass? You know, but I mean, he's the fun-loving one, and you know, I come from a family of 5 boys, and I'm the youngest. And so I know what he feels like, and that's why I relate to him. And my boss says, "You're not Mikey, you're Leonardo," you know, because she wants me to be the leader. You know, and I was like, "Okay, you're right." So, but yeah, it's definitely the characters, I think, that really make it a hit, and that why the kids and even the adults, you know, that really enjoy it. You know, they're just attracted to the characters, and they see a part of themselves in that, and that's what we try to find with Nick as well.
It's amazing too, just to carry on a bit more, just in that. It's amazing that we had fans in the first place for the first Turtle issue, and I do see, you know, we're coming up on 30 years now, and it's like, it get to be, like, say in the early days, a young fan would come up to the table and for autographs and have a very kind of pissed off looking parent behind him, because the parent would be like, do you know how much money I spent on Turtle toys? Do you know how many Christmas Eves I spent putting together the Technodrome or the Turtle Blimp? But now it's completely different in that it's more generational, that you have this young father and sometimes father and mother come up and go, we grew up on the Turtles, and now the kids are enjoying it too, and they're enjoying it together. And that's, you know, 1 makes me feel old, and 2 makes me feel incredibly flattered.
You should just be flattered. Yeah.
I'm very flattered. I mean, I've had a lot of work done, so I feel.
His birthday's coming up, by the way. Yeah.
I'll be 50 soon, right? There's my wife. She's love. My wife's probably at the bar.
Somebody back him up.
She back to the bar?
Yeah, she's back to the bar.
Much like the Turtles, you're not showing your age at all.
Thank you.
Now, I mean, obviously this is a really exciting point in the Turtle story, but can you just take us way back to the beginning and just talk a little bit about just the genesis of these just magical characters?
Thank you very much. Well, the origins of the stories really came from a fanboy place, in that Peter and I grew up huge fans of comics, and that was the dream both of ours. We both wanted to be comic book storytellers, standing on the shoulders of giants like Jack Kirby, and even underground artists like Vaughn Bodie and Richard Corbin and Robert Crumb and those kind of things. So when we set out to sort of write and draw and tell our own stories, we submitted original ideas to Marvel and DC, had a whole stack of rejection letters and those kinds of things. And one night in a studio, which was called Mirage Studios because it was our living room, it wasn't really a studio, Peter used to watch what I thought was the worst TV shows ever, like T.J. Hooker and A-Team and stuff. And so I thought it was my job to annoy him as much as possible while he was watching his shows. So one night I did this sketch of a turtle standing upright, mask on, nunchucks strapped to his arms. So Michelangelo was the first Ninja Turtle, and I threw it on his desk and I said, "This is going to be the next big thing, ha ha ha, a Ninja Turtle." And in a studio one-upmanship, he did a drawing to top my drawing, and I laughed, and of course I had to top his drawing, so I did a sketch, a pencil sketch of 4 of them, put this kind of comic booky Ninja Turtle title block on it, and I gave it to him to ink. When he inked it, he had a Teenage Mutant to the thing. Next day we got up and we're looking at this drawing and said, we really have to come up with a story that tells how they got to be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And that was, the drawing was in 1983, and we published the comic book in 1984. And from then on, we kind of held on for dear life.
I've been hearing that story like every hour, and it's great. Yeah, awesome.
Thank you.
How did you hear about the title change in the UK for the original series?
Early, it was very early on. Is that when again, when you look at the perspective of, we started as a comic book, we didn't think it'd sell, and it sold, and then we started on a cartoon series we didn't think would work, and it worked. And then the fact that it worked in the United States was amazing, and then that it started going to other countries. And when they told us that they had to change the word ninja to hero, I thought that was kind of funny. I didn't completely understand why, but it didn't really seem to hurt the property that much either, which was because I came over for the first press tour on the Turtle movie and did the Jonathan Ross show and did the whole thing. It was really funny. But Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles was the original, and I'm glad that they're calling it Ninja Turtles in this series. It's back to the original. So.
I mean, how do you feel about losing the Teenage Mutant part? Is it okay for them just to have shortened it down?
Oh, for the new movie?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because we've tried, the TMNT we did in the last animated movie. That was a logo design I did, goodness, way back for a portfolio series Pete and I did back in like 1989, and it was sort of something sort of coming in out of the closet, I guess, if you will, back in the series. So Ninja Turtles don't really, I think it still resonates, and it's hard to say.
I mean, I guess it's the question fans are going to want to know. What are your hopes and fears for the new film? Because I think that's what fans have got at the moment. A bit of both.
No, and understandable too. And I have to say, I touched on it a bit in the session. Was, I've been very fortunate that they brought me on to work on the new series and the new movie, and I've seen all the material, and it's at the same time frustrating that I can't tell you more. But I'll tell you that that it really is. Michael Bay and Jonathan Liebsman, the director. Michael Bay is an executive producer, and Jonathan Liebsman is a director. Their heart's in exactly the right place, and they want to tell a great story. And Josh Applebaum and Andre Nemec, who are doing the writing, they wrote Ghost Protocol, and these guys are top shelf guys, and they've written a great story. And they're still working on it, so it's still in development. But it's very much, they uploaded the latest version to me last Tuesday, and it's fantastic. It really is.
I mean, one thing that Michael said that obviously did draw an interesting reaction from fans was when he started talking about the fact that there were going to be aliens.
Yes.
I mean, again, do you think that's going to give any kind of a change to the flavour of our Turtles?
Well, what's interesting, and it's funny because, as much as I want to address that point specifically, I'll say this, is that in the original Turtles comics, Turtles issue 3 and 4, and next year it's a story arc that runs and starts in issue 3 and ends in issue 7, where you discover the origin of the ooze that mutated them, and it's of alien origin. So they actually have alien origins anyway. So, but that's all I can tease you and tell you.
I think it's pretty clear though that the story is not set in stone yet.
No, exactly.
And
that's better put.
Yeah, and it's we started our series before the movie development started, so
totally.
they're not in tangent with each other. So they're separate entities. But,
and that's a great point. Is that we're very lucky in that back in like the original series, we did the original comic book. The black and white series was a very different story and even the origin we changed when we did the original animated series, and that was even tweaked further when we did the original Turtle movie, and tweaked again when they did the series. Now that we when I started doing the new IDW comic series, you know, we have, I mean, April names the Turtles in the new comic series, and she's back in a lab like she was in Turtles issue 2, as opposed to a reporter that she was in the cartoon series. And so it's fun to sort of, you know, build on sort of some very specific origins and roots, and you know, twist it up a little bit.
It's one of the fun things about the franchise is that the actual, you can do different routes, you know, with the storylines and so forth, and yet it just feels like an extension of, it doesn't feel like a total departure. So, you know, we'll see how this comes out, but to me, you know, with the comic books and the movies and the video games and everything that's going on, it just seems like everything's going to be an extension of the core base, which is the series at this point.
No, it's a great point, because Nickelodeon is really spearheading even the direction of the comic book series and the stuff that they allowed us to do. I mean, the first issue we find out, you know, Raphael's been separated from the 3 other turtles, and Casey's dad is an abusive alcoholic and beats him up, and you know, stuff that we're like, holy shit. They embraced the entire. It's fun, you know, for kids.
But yeah,
but they wanted the comic book to be true to its origins, and I think that they really, you know, stepped up.
And then we'll do kid comics later. Yeah. Those are definitely not the
less alcoholism in them.
Yeah.
So if the cartoon series does very well, do you actually think it might then influence how that movie then develops further?
And we have already started, you know, developing our series. So at this point, there's 2 moving trains, and you know, there might be a little bit of influence, but it's not going to be heavily influenced either one at this point. Yeah.
And I think that's just testament for, you know, that they can all 3 survive, much like, you know, again, going back to some of the original origins to what we did along the way. It's like to have all of those parallel universes sort of coexist. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, how will they complement each other? I mean, because obviously kids will watch the Ninja Turtles on the TV, and then they'll find out that there's a movie out. I mean, if the movie's so radically different, do you think? I mean, how do you see it working?
You know, I just think it's. I feel like it's worked in the past, which is cool. But I had this funny moment that pops in my head when you said that, because it was we're sitting in the movie premiere, and April O'Neil reporting from Channel 13. I think it was 13 in the movie, and the kids in the audience were like, "No, it's Channel 6," because it was Channel 6 in the cartoon show. So, you know, it's sort of
one less number to draw.
So it can be confusing sometimes, I guess. But it's again, I think we're lucky we have fans that have embraced all the different versions.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an opportunity, actually, you know, like I was saying, as far as it being an extension of, you know, the core being the series, and then, you know, the movie is definitely, you know, there's certain things that we may, you know, cross over, but, you know, again, they're being developed at certain times, different times, and so they're going to be completely different products. Yeah. But, you know, I think as a fan, you'll be able to sort of, you know, embrace both versions.
Yeah, totally.
And we're talking about all these different versions. I guess bring it back to the series. What are you specifically hoping fans are going to take away from this version?
Man, it's you know, I gush over it and so sincerely. You know, to me, it's you know, my first vision, my first tour of what they were doing with it was just, I was impressed immediately not only with the quality of the visuals, because you know, being an artist, I mean, you know, I'd almost lean towards stronger visuals than story any day, but it's like what they've come up with is a perfect combination of both. I think that, you know, I look at some of the city scenes you guys have done, which go, you know, not, you know, 1 city block deep, but like 20 city blocks, and the camera movement and the full use of the CG aspects. It's almost like this hybrid of 2D, CG, anime, CG, you know, CG kind of look. But I love the quality of the animation. I love the style of the animation. Even the style of the Turtles, which I think harken back to some of the original Turtles #1 cover with the larger feet and the different, you know, more leaner teenage boy, 15-year-old teenage boy musculature, and the stories by far I think stand out.
I mean, for me that's what it's all about. You know, I'm a story guy, and so it all starts with the character, and so that's why this property was really easy for Nickelodeon to sort of, you know, undertake. It was just sort of like, you got these great characters, you know, great personalities, and so, you know, we just kind of looked at them and said, you know, how can we, you know, kind of hit the reset button on them, and then from there, you know, grow it even bigger, and so, and then tell these fantastic stories, you know, that the origin story, you know, and then how this character comes in. It just, that's what I was talking about downstairs with. It just keeps opening itself up bigger and bigger, and before we knew it, we're like, oh my God, this thing's huge. You know?
It is huge, and it's like, just the balancing act. I mean, you look at, it's almost like, the movie's got it easy just to do one movie. It's like you're doing balancing, 26 stories. We have to keep the humor, and the beats going and everything. And
that's the beauty of a TV series, I think. Is that you get to really get into stuff and tell the stories, and then the kids or the audience in general gets to live with that. Over a course of a year and a half before a whole nother season comes in. And so you keep developing stories and branches and tangents and then coming back and then go back out again. So that's why I love working on TV series. It just keeps growing. Yeah.
You mentioned in the downstairs that you're really happy with how you updated Splinter, making taller, and April as well. I mean, out of everything there that you've done, so what's your personal favourite new ideas that you've brought to this cartoon? What do you think? Oh yeah, that's perfect.
I think, for me, going back to the Turtles, I just love the fact that we individualize them as much as we have, with the different sizes and the little things, like I was talking about with Raphael, and he's got that chink in his shell. I love that. I love the fact that he's the brawler, and yet he's got a chunk taken out of his shell.
Yeah.
He's got more scratches on him. We got down to the details when we got into the CG animation, and sort of like, and Donnie with the little gap tooth, and the whole thing. It's just great, I love those little individual isms, the characters and the personalities, and just, being able to identify them, because at one point, they all look the same, way back, and sort of the only way you could tell them was their weapons, and then the headbands, and then, it was started kind of growing a little bit because I worked on Penguins, the Penguins of Madagascar as well, and that was another show with 4 brothers that all looked the same, and they were in New York City, and I was like, what's going on with me? I'm getting all these shows. But we did the same little thing with them, even though they're penguins. We had to stretch one up, pull one down, just sort of all different voices and so forth. So you can definitely get the characters and the personalities of each, and you'd have your favorite, and that's what for me is the huge attribute for that.
To me, I love April. I like that they aged April down to be more around the Turtles' age, because it's like I just think they need that. They need that dynamic to relate to her better. It's like they can have their crushes or their things or their their isms, but it's like much more relatable. I love that Splinter's taller, because it's always we envision him more like a Yoda, sort of very zen, sort of almost fragile, and then the Splinter here is much more authoritative and sort of taller and real sensei that you feel this guy can kick butt. And I like the fact that Shredder is a true badass. I like that because every great hero is made greater if he has to defeat a really bad guy, and so that I think it makes the Turtles look more honorable and cooler to deal with him.
I'm loving Splinter too. I gotta say,
Splinter's awesome.
He's quite sarcastic, which is kind of refreshing. He's always he'll do things, somebody say, well, that's not fair, and he'll go, whap, and he'll take their feet out, with a stick, and he'll be like, was that fair? And he's like, you're like, no, I guess I get your point, and then he walks away going, ha, ha, ha. It's sort of like, you're like, I don't know if he's an abusive dad or a jerk, or is he just he's teaching them a lesson, And so at the end of the day, at the end of all the episodes, it sort of starts out with him sort of setting up with a lesson to be learned, and then they somehow incorporate that into whatever they're fighting out on the street, whatever kind of adventure or mess they get themselves into. And at the end of the day, they sort of realize, oh, it was all about, being calm, or, or learning how to pay attention, or, whatever it be.
Are you allowed to say if Splinter is a Matayoshi or a mutant rat?
I don't really want to be the authority on that. So, yeah, he's a mutant rat, though. But, yeah,
It'll,
we have to wait and see.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. It's like, because again, it's like, for me as well as how much, you've done all the work. I get to come in occasionally and enjoy all your intense labors, but it's like, it's bursting at the seams to sort of tell more, and we can't. But it's going to be pretty.
How do you balance the mixture between violence and comedy? Because obviously in modern cartoons you can't be too violent.
Right.
Obviously, these are Ninja Turtles. How do you try and find that right balance of it? Tough but not too violent.
Yeah, it's a great question, because I know a lot of people are concerned about violence and so forth, and we're Nickelodeon, so we never do anything too violent, and the Turtles aren't out there busting heads for the joy of it. It's really about good versus evil, and so they're defending themselves and they're defending the world, basically, and that's really what they are, is they're world defenders, at the end of the day. So it starts in New York City, but then it kind of unfolds outward from there, and they use their weapons, and they use their maneuvers and ninjutsu ways in order to defend against the evil. It's really the best way to describe that. They never use their weapons against human beings, animals. It's always against robotic aliens, mutants, those kind of creatures, kind of things that you really can't sort of quote unquote kill. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they want to be teenagers first. I mean, it's like they have to. Being a teenager is tough because there's rules that apply no matter whether you're a mutant turtle or otherwise.
Right.
But it's like I think they want to be teenagers first. But it's like when they have to deal with an alien horde and dealing or mutant robot ninjas.
Yeah. I mean, they have to win at the end of the day. So but again, they're not going to use the weapons against other living things like human beings or animals. So.
Was there ever any the Turtles been around 30 years? Was there ever any trepidation that you were rebooting it yet again?
No, not really. I think just sort of, wanting to have fun and, be creative with it, and sort of excited, the great thing we were talking about this earlier is that just the origin of the whole creation of the franchise, of the property, came out of these guys having fun, and these guys, playing around with each other. And so there was no formula there to do something a certain way and make it a comic book, and so then it can become a video game, so then a TV series, and then they weren't really aiming for that. They were just having a good time, and so out of that whole thing came this this great property. And so when we got it, it was sort of like we acquired it because we wanted to. It just felt like a natural fit for Nickelodeon. You got 4 teenager brothers, that are heroes, and they're funny. It's a shoo-in.
No, to me, I'm still, most days I can't get past it's, almost 30 years and we're still talking about it, that the Turtles are still, that they still resonate and that they're still, that they're being rebooted after all this time. And when we started the comic series with IDW almost a year ago, it was the same, entering the same pool of sort of, are they going to like it or are they not going to like it? Because we took some chances and it was, we again, it came from a very sincere place, and it's like, we're putting it out there and hope they like it.
Right.
And again, the fans came back and embraced it, and I was like, geez,
Yeah, it's risky. I mean, there's no doubt you're always taking a chance with something like that. Yeah, but
no,
I always say, no, that was always his master plan 30 years ago. He was like, yeah. No, but it's definitely a risk, and but it's also been a lot of fun. The way I sum up the whole thing at this point, because it's hard to sort of redevelop something and then get into the animation of it and keep everything going, and we got everybody like Playmates and everybody in on the game, and people are doing things all the way to the movie, to the video game, to the comic books, to whatever. And I've never worked on a franchise like this before, where I've had all these things going on at the same time, and so it's been really exhilarating and really exhausting all at the same time. So I'm going to go take a nap now.
Sleep on the way home.
No, it's fun. I mean, I got to say, this is like the biggest thing we've done, and it's been nothing but awesome.
Obviously, as a Nickelodeon being a family channel, but being the creators of the series, you must be also aware that there is interest for people right up until they're probably in their 40s.
Absolutely. I mean, we're trying to touch the whole fan base, and it's really interesting. I love it. I don't care if I'm here or if I'm in New York City. I travel around a lot, and so I might be in, this actually happened, I was in the car with the driver, and he said, oh, you work for, Nickelodeon, what do you do? And, I didn't really want to tell him, and so I eventually told him, and because he kept hounding me. And then he said, oh my God, the Turtles, you work for the Turtles, my kid, and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And he was going on and on all the way to the airport, which was an hour drive, and I was like going, I just can't. But it was actually really interesting and fun and exciting, because here's this guy that was well into his 40s that has a 9-year-old son, and he's driving me to the airport, and I don't know him at all, but the minute you talk to somebody about Turtles, they get excited about it. And then I was telling you also about, on my flight out, I was looking at scripts or something that said Teenage Turtles on it or something like that, and I was in the plane, and the guy sitting next to me kept peeking over, and I was trying to hide stuff, and then he just eventually said, is that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? And I said, yeah, it is. And oh my God, blah, 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 blah. It's so fun. And that guy was in his 20s, and so just the range of generations going on, it's awesome.
It's a huge compliment, and I say that in all sincerity, and could say it all day long. It's like, I say that I'm lucky to have one fan, to have, enough fans to fill that auditorium downstairs is just it's just a huge honor. It's fantastic.
I mean, was there ever a discussion, perhaps maybe putting this on MTV instead, within the network?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it doesn't feel like that's the right audience. You know, Nickelodeon and MTV are completely different, and you know, we really do feel like at the end of the day, it's a family show. That's what we're making. We want, you know, to be able to have the kid audience, you know, fall in love with this show and the characters and the stories, and at the same time, we want their parents to sit down with them and watch it. And we really think that's what's going to happen.